Now, you've been sitting in this role for a few years. You have massive experience of helping other companies with AI and some pretty big companies. I see this shift of everybody kind of using it as a task accelerator, a task manager, do this, do that. You guys have really made it kind of this full life cycle partner, and it's changing how teams work together. How does that look like, what does that look like from the inside as you're building and kind of managing this team?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And this relates to the previous question also, right? One of the things what we built is, once you use a AI tool, this is something which I ask my partners when they sort of come in. I said, like, okay, you used XYZ tool, so who is your star developer, right? Like they'll say, oh, this person, does amazing work with this coding agent. I said, like, how is the person sitting next to him benefiting? Right? They don't have an answer for that. They are like, oh no, he teaches them or he sends his prompts to them, right? Like, but I said, like, that's the manual, what you can say, tedious way of doing it, right? Like, so I tell to CIOs saying that, okay, companies are built with teams. It is not about individuals, right? You need to raise the team, not an individual, right? Because if you raise an individual, you're making one link of the chain better. The same thing as my saying that, okay, your engineers are producing code faster, but your other SDLC is slow. How does it matter, right? So what we built into this is a hierarchical concept of like something like, I'll give you one example. We have something called a prompt library. Now this prompt library, it can be maintained at a team level, at a product level, at an enterprise level, and at an industry level, or something like that. And I'm, as an enterprise architect, I can set a guideline saying that, okay, I want every payment thing to be audited to this audit database. Now, as a team developer, I don't need to know about that. I basically say that I'm working on a payment project and I'm implementing this functionality to accept this payment. It immediately knows that guideline, and before it generates the code, it puts the audit logs, because that enterprise architect's guidelines take precedence, which get appended to his query, right? And a team lead might say, I want you to use log4j for logging, right? Like, that's the next level. Okay, you want me to log. The team lead said you need to use this library. The user actually wants to do this functionality. I'm now adding all three together. Now the whole team is benefiting. So someone is setting standards. Now you can see how it gets propagated, right? So that is how an enterprise and a team benefits from having a collaborative context sharing, collaborative best practices sharing. And this is just not related to prompts. Prompts are the lowest level of sharing, but it applies to your context sharing. It applies to your and the guidelines on the context, who has access to what context. If you just ingest all of them into a vector database, there might be some sensitive financial algorithms. People can just ask the context and say, okay, tell me how this, how our order, let us say, fraud check works. That's supposed not to be accessible to anyone, only to them, right? So you need to, when you ingest the enterprise context, there should be guardrails, which who has access to what context, right? And how can they use? You should be able to know the fraud interface guidelines so that you can call it in your program, but you should not know the algorithm, because that is sensitive, that's trade secret, maybe whatever it is, right? So things like that, you need a platform to enable that. Individual tools will not be able to do that, right? That is one of the ways where we help the teams collaborate better.